All right, the Premier League is back. Newcastle versus Southampton this Saturday at St James's Park. Join us here right now on Toon Tactics TV as we break the game down. Can the Saints overcome the Magpies, or can Eddie Howe's Newcastle show their Champions League credentials and dominate their way to a victory? Find out here on Toon Tactics TV, folks. Right, so as we get into the tactics, I wanted to read a quick article from a journalist. I forgot the gentleman's name, but I put him on to explain why I think Southampton will start for the 5-3-2 formation. The gentleman's name, Adrian Clark, gave this report in 5th of July 2024, talking about Russell Martin and his Saints. Now, you guys will learn about the Saints and Saints Southampton. Keep on getting it the other way around. Is their ability to hold on to the ball, their possession, their passing, their playing from the back. But also, Russell Martin, as is kind of pointed out here by Adrian Clark, his ability and his willingness to adapt his tactics. So, yes, as you guys can see from for most of the time, let me put it down. He employs the 4-3-3 formation and did so 34 times last season. However, specifically for high quality, high pressing teams such as Leeds United and West Brom, and we'll get into those games, he adapted a 3-5-2 formation and won those games. He likes to play through the center, and he wanted his team to be defensively sound, sacrificing his possession-based tactics in order to win the game, which is something I think he will employ, Russell Martin will, in his game against Newcastle United. Now, we're going to go for a little bit of the overall stats for Southampton. FotMob gave them an overall rating of 3rd best. That's including everything in terms of shooting, defending, scoring, all those things. It gave them an overall rating of 3rd behind Leicester and Leeds. And they weren't the best side in the Championship, which is another thing for them. Although they scored a lot of goals, they were 3rd for that. They also conceded a lot of goals. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? In terms of being, 14th in that. The other interesting thing, obviously, again, low on clean sheets, highest on possession stats, which shows you just how good they were in possession. 2nd highest in chances created, which again shows you their flair for going forward. But the part I'm interested in, obviously, number 1 for touches in the box, which is really, really interesting, was possession 1 in the final third, and they were 3rd for that behind Sunderland. Boo. behind Sunderland. Behind Sunderland. So they were a high possession, high intensity team, lots of good passing on the ball, a team but who conceded a lot of goals and also conceded the chances as well. And that's kind of Southampton in a nutshell. I'll go to the games where they played the 5-3-2 formation. Obviously, right here, as you guys can see, this is Leeds Southampton. This is the game that obviously Southampton won. And what you can see, I know this is the average. This is the average player positions. Now you can see from the orange side, which is Leeds, they were very high pressing. Their forwards, their midfield, even most of their defenders are in the second half of the pitch. While Southampton's are a little bit more conservative, and they flooded that middle with their main middle three of Downs, Aribo, and Smallbone, who protected their back 5 in Manning, Stevens, Bednarak, Howard, and Carl Walker-Peters. Interestingly, also in terms of how they use their wing backs, you can see the 2 and the 3. That's Carl Walker-Peters and Mr. Manning. They would use them to meet the wingers of Leeds, but also sometimes they would also obviously used as the flank that would try to pin the opposition wingers and wing backs down as well, and they help a lot in doing that. The other thing that they're really good at, their wing, is inverting. In particular, I think Smallbone does a little bit more than Kyle Walker-Peters. So they invert in the press, which helps them to take that midfield dominance. So it will take a really, really good team. Excuse me, got to take a coffee. It will take a really, really good team to pass through their press. Very, very similarly. Now let me show you to the West Brom game. West Brom are slightly less in terms of quality to Leeds, but again, very, very attacking. Southampton obviously were a little bit more attacking compared to the Leeds game in this one, but he kept a 5-3-2 position. I think this is the game that they won 3-1, Southampton, hence why, yeah, they did. They won 3-1, hence why you probably see the average positions a little bit higher up the field. But again, as you can see, their centre-backs, the 5-3-5, you got number 5, 35, 21, and 2. And that is Stevens, Bednarak, Howe was pressing very, very, very high up, very similar to the Leeds game as well. But it's all about taking that midfield dominance for them, playing through the middle and punishing teams with their press and with their central play. Really good passing, triangular passing typically, and using their inverted wingers to add to the fluidity of how they move forward. So Eddie Howe has a lot to deal with when it comes to Southampton in the opening game of this season. So let's move on to our tactics in terms of what Eddie Howe is likely to employ, what I think he'll employ anyway. Let me take that off the screen, but let me know what you guys think in terms of while we're here. If you was Russell Martin, how would you approach your first game of the season in the Premier League? How would you face a team like Newcastle, who you know in the opening day of last season against real fan favourites amongst neutral fan favourites in Aston Villa, who were beaten 5-1. Let me know what you guys think. Send in your comments, send in your questions, and remember to like, share, and subscribe. We're getting a lot of views, and so I want to be able to reflect that with the like. So starting lineups. This is what I think will be the starting lineup for Newcastle and Southampton. And for those of you watching, for those of you paying attention, will notice that I've included, I think the main change, I think from what everybody else is saying, obviously there's no surprise that we're playing 4-3-3, but from what I've seen on social media, but maybe people would have had it different, I've put Harvey Barnes on the left instead of Anthony Gordon. And the main reasons for this is that, in my view, although obviously Anthony Gordon had a fantastic year, I think Eddie Howe really, really, really rates Harvey Barnes. And so do I. He's a slightly different player to Anthony Gordon, although they have similarities. They're both 6 foot plus, both strong. Anthony Gordon's a little bit more pacey. They both can take the ball in the half turn, but I think Harvey Barnes can do it a little bit better even. On the left side, on the right side, I think Harvey Barnes prefers, because he's got just that much less pace than Anthony Gordon. He prefers to take up positions in the pockets in the final third. But also, I think he's taken a little bit more minutes, and I think Anthony Gordon has just come back as well. I also think in the longer part, as this game wears on, in the 60th, 65 minute, to be able to put on Anthony Gordon is a great weapon to have for Eddie Howe. So I see him starting with Eddie Howe, with Jacob Murphy on the right, Isak in the middle, Joe Linton, Bruno Gomes, and Longstaff making up our midfield. Hall, Burn, Shaw, and Livramento making up our back line, and Pope as our goalkeeper. But our bench is looking very healthy with Kelly, Trippier, Gordon, Almiron, Osola, Wilson, who we've been told is going to be back, Willock, Jamie Miley, and Vladi Kamos. I think that's a very, very healthy bench that would allow Howe to rotate the midfield, rotate the attack, and rotate the defense should he need. And he's got a couple game changers there in Wilson and in Gordon in particular. So moving on to the actual formation. So big shout out to Elite Football guys. This is from their YouTube YouTube maps as well. I'll have the link in the description. So what this actually shows is, let me get on it. It shows in the lighter shade, that is the 3-5-2, sorry, the 5-3-2 of Southampton. In the darker blue, that's the 4-3-3 of Newcastle United. So you guys will see the darker blue 3-6-5-2, the 8-4-8, the 7-9-11, or in terms of the 4-3-3 formation and the 5-3-2. If you match them up, they actually match up really well in terms of how the formations come together. So there's a 1v1 matchups. Obviously, the 3-5-2, the 5-3-2, you'll see their number in the lighter shades. Southampton wingbacks, the 3 and the 2, that'll be Carl Peters, and it'll be Saguara, who I think who might be playing. You see the 3 and 2, they will push right up to Hall and Livramento, and that's going to be one of the key battles that you'll see, especially if Southampton are losing that battle. They're going to be in great danger. So what Sagara and Kyle Walker-Peters will be doing will be vital, because if they're losing that battle, it will give us dominance of the midfield. You will see Murphy. We'll talk about it more, but you can see the matchups there. And as I've mentioned here, so this next slide is how this would look from the previous slide, but in terms of, like, you can see the faces. Like I said, you see Sagara and Hall matching up. You see Kyle Walker-Peters matching up with Livramento in the 1v1s. Shaw and Bertrand Diaz, Bird, and Adam Armstrong, our former Newcastle player, matching up with Burnley. We know that Adam Armstrong isn't very tall at all, but isn't as tall as Burn. It's very short actually, but it's quick. It's got a little bit of pace and could cause trouble that way. And you see Smallbone matching up with Joe Linton. I back Joe Linton every time. Aribo against Gomeres. Again, I back Gomeres. Downs versus Longstaff. And you see on the final third, our attackers, Barnes against Bayliss, who comes from Man City. Bednarak, former, is no stranger to the Premier League, as is Kyle Walker-Peters, really well known to everybody. Against Isak, and I back Isak, especially in a 1v1 against Bednarak. And that'll be the situation that Southampton will hope to avoid. And Stevens versus Murphy. So those 1v1 battles, which I think Eddie Howe will look to try and have, will try to isolate the Southampton players, especially in key areas like the final third, like on the in the wings, and in the midfield areas, if you can. So, i.e., Bruno Aribo, Isak Bednarak, Livramento, Walker-Peters, and or even have 2-on-1s in the Hall, Joe Linton combination of a Sagara. He will try to isolate their players like that in order to take advantage. And this is the other phase. So this is the idea of Southampton pressing and inverting their fullback. So remember, Southampton are in the lighter shade. So you can see their back three, the 6, 5, and 4, and the goalkeeper really pushing up. They will try to take, and you guys would have seen it in the average positions that we saw earlier from the Who Scored website, that their back three really pushes up. And you'll see their midfield in Smallbone, in who is the gentleman here? In Smallbone, in Aribo, and Downs also pushing up and coming onto our midfield. And what you'll see, you can see the 3 and the 2, that being Walker-Peters and Sagara. But Walker-Peters in this instant inverting in and trying to create a 2 versus 1 situation, as you guys would see here. Whereas Kyle Walker-Peters and Downs are trying to cause a 2 versus 1 situation over Longstaff. So Livramento and others, as you can see here, will have to be alert. So that's on the right side. So that's how they would have to press Southampton. That'll be one of their key weapons. Obviously, they're third in the Championship for their high pressing. How that translates to the Premier League in the golfing class in terms of individual quality between players, but also play. Like Newcastle are no stranger to being pressed, and one of Eddie Howe's key weapons is the counter press. So, i.e., the idea of luring the opposition onto you, so you can trap them, you can counter press them, and hit them either he'll hit them with a long ball to the front forwards or pass his way through, or even worse for Southampton, if you get the likes of Shaw and Burn, which actually dribbling past their press, and Hall, and I'll include Hall and Livramento in that. And that's situations you can see the ball is here with the number 4, get onto Bruno. If they start letting Shaw, who I think will be key in this, if Shaw is allowed to get past a Berreton Diaz press, a Walker press, and is able to pass through the channels onto Bruno Gomes, who's exceptional, one of the best midfielders, players in general, with his back to goal. I think only Rodri is really better than him in my view. And he's able to turn and pass and lay off to Murphy, lay off to Isak. And all of a sudden, as we have seen earlier, that situation where you got their back three so high up, they're in a 1v1 situation with your Isaks, with your Murphys, with your Barnes. It could be a very, very long day for Southampton. So they got to get that press right. However, should Russell Martin be a little bit more reserved in his tactical play? So just before we actually get to that as well, so yeah, this is also shows the forward runs. So he has to back his back three if he's pressing their back three. Does he back his Bednarek and others against Isak, against Murphy, against Barnes? He saw what happened to Tottenham, and they've got better defenders than Southampton. It's why I think Russell Martin will be, in my view, ought to be. What he'll do, I don't know, but what he ought to be is a bit more cautious about how he presses Newcastle, because the game could be over in the first half if he's too, I'm not going to say gung-ho, naive about it. So that would be my thing. So, but the other tactic, as I mentioned, what if Russell Martin employs a more reserved approach? So here you see, as again, always, in the lighter shade Southampton, in the darker blue representing Newcastle, you see now Southampton playing more of a mid-block, almost final third, but more of a mid-block. You see their front three very, very close in line with their back five, their wing backs in Kyle Walker-Peters and Sugara in this stage, also back defending. It's very, very hard centrally to get through that. And you can see here the number 6, our number 6 in the darker blue will probably be Shaw or Burn, but you want Shaw on it because in terms of the channel. Now it's a bit more harder to get through centrally. However, and this is what it would look like. This is what it would look like on the pitch in terms of, you'd have obviously Bednarek, Stevens, all very much in the final third, and you'll have the rebuild Downs and Smallbone patrolling their final forward for making sure that Newcastle can't get in between the channels there as well. But then you'll see Bruno pushing up. You see, I think Bruno, Burn and Shaw, in my view, taking hold of the ball in the final third in particular. Where it will start to go really wrong for Southampton if they're not careful is if Bruno starts to pick up the ball higher up the pitch. I see in this instant as well, Hall and Livramento really push up against Walker-Peters. Hall in particular, I think, will be inverting together with Joe Linton and possibly even with Bruno Gomes. Bruno Gomes, as you guys remember, really, really enjoys playing with Hall. I think he trusts Hall with the ball a lot. And if you start seeing those 1-2s or even those 3 versus 1s, 2 versus 1s against Smallbone, and then them passing into the channels onto Barnes, who we know is really good with the cutbacks, really efficient with the ball, and this decision making, passing and shooting onto Isak or onto the goal. Again, it is something that Southampton have to avoid. But also, if they're going to be reserved like that, you're going to allow our guys ball playing centre back in terms of Shaw onto the ball, Gomes onto the ball. Is very, very dangerous for them because it gives us that kind of choice in terms of how we want to do it, giving us the opportunity to pass through the back. The other concern for Southampton is, and this is what happens if you play that reserve. Guys can see again, Southampton are in the light blue. You got your 11, 8, and 7, and that is small bone, that's a Rebo, and that's Downs. If Newcastle, as they're trying to protect their back five, you can see that they can't cover every area of the pitch. In fact, if they go from left or to right, in this instance, they go to the right, or their right towards Howe, the number 3, for instance, because they're worried about Howe, they're worried about Barnes doing a 2-on-1 on their right back, who I think will be Cigar in this instant. So they shift over. It leaves a huge space in the back there on the right-hand side where you can see where I've put, and it gives Newcastle an opportunity of a 3 versus 2 situation, and it can be switched like that. Hall can switch the ball, Gomes can switch the ball, and they all can do it really, really well progressively. And Longstaff isn't bad with the progressive passing, and that's how it would look on the ground like this, where if you could imagine a Rebo, Downs, and Smallbone have shifted onto the side of Hall and Joe Linton, and that frees up. In this case, I put Gomes. As I'm saying, this is the most dangerous part of the field. If Longstaff drops back, but Gomes pushes forward into those pockets. Now the ball gets shifted from Hall to Gomes. We know that Gomes is very good, can be very creative as well. He can get and then you see Murphy bombing forward. You get Livramento bombing forward. Both athletic, strong players. It's going to be hard for Southampton to track those guys. And then in that kind of situation, you've got that 3 versus 2. They can cut back onto Isak, or they can shoot themselves. And Isak, in my view, his reputation is going to precede him. Bednarak is going to be worried about him a lot. They may not see the last ditch run-ins from Longstaff, from Bruno, possibly from Joe Linton and others. And again, it could be a real difficult situation for Southampton. So what does Russell Martin choose? You guys let me know. Is he going to play more reserved? Is he going to play more high pressing? Is he going to play the mid block? What's he going to do in the situation? You guys let me know. So the one way to kind of battle against that sort of overload that we mentioned earlier is for one of their strikers in either Bertrand Diaz or Armstrong joining in with their midfield 3 and defending. However, that reduces again their opportunity to be offensively sound even more. If they leave Bertrand Diaz up front and have Armstrong tracking Bruno Gomes, for instance, in our midfield, Bertrand Diaz doesn't have the pace to challenge Bernard Shaw. And even if they leave Armstrong up front, who has a little bit more pace, but again, it's not devastating pace. I think, again, it leaves Southampton in a situation that they can't be offensively dangerous to Newcastle. And the less they are dangerous offensively to Newcastle, the more I can see Newcastle slowly, metaphorically strangling the life out of them and just bombarding them with runs on the wing, playing through the center, even passing through the channels, and really hurting them. And it could be very dangerous, as we spoke about earlier. So that's where I see it. Obviously, as you can see, that's like I said, Bertrand Diaz coming back and tracking Bruno Gomes. That's some of the tactics there that I think could be employed and what could be happening. However, who are the key men for Newcastle United? Where will be the key battles as well? So I think it's great to have Pope back. The fact that we've got Pope back allows Newcastle to push up higher because he's a very good sweeper keeper. He's also a very good keeper and shot stopper. And we play a whole lot better with him in the team. I think Shaw's going to be very important. I think Southampton, especially if they employ the high press, are going to be looking to stop Shaw from getting on the ball, to stop Gomes getting on the ball, who we'll talk about as well. If they allow Shaw to get on the ball and pass through the channels or send the long balls onto Isak or to even Joe Linton, as was previously, onto Barnes and to others, it could be very dangerous for Southampton again. Bruno Gomes, again, picking up the ball for Newcastle from the goalkeeper back to goal, playing through the channels again could be dangerous for Southampton if they don't find a way to close them down using that high press. That high press that they employ, if they choose to employ it against Newcastle St James's Park, could be null and void if they allow Shaw and Bruno Guimaraes in particular to dictate that play. Joe Linton is phenomenal to have him back. And watching him in pre-season, like I said, not only him as an individual is good in the press, but he sets the pace. He's the leader in the press. He initiates the press. He gets the other midfielders forwards to push forward, and he knows when to do it. And that's where the counter press is going to be so significant for Newcastle United, because when Howe talks about Joe Linton being tactically aware, it's not until I really saw it in person, because I just thought it's his positional sense. It's not that. Joe Linton knows exactly when to press the opposition. And that not only is very rewarding as you get a lot of success in getting the ball back, but also it's energy saving. You're not just pressing for the sake because you're being told to press. You know when to press and you know when to rest. And when you've got players like that, like Joe Linton, being able to give you that knowledge and that leadership, it's so vital. Plus, he's a beast. And when I saw in the preseason, people just avoided going for that left-hand side because of him. And I think at times Newcastle will set traps where they look as if they're inviting the Southampton on, inviting them onto the press, only to hit them with a counter press, nick that ball, get that ball as quickly up to Isak, to Barnes, and to Murphy, and to really hurt Southampton. And finally, our man Isak, one shot, one kill. Isak the Great. He has been on fire in the preseason. He's going to be just as important in the Premier League. We're all looking for him to score 20, 25 goals plus, God willing, no injuries, and to be a vital cog. And if he is, which I think he will be, as deadly in this game as he's been in other games, it could be very dangerous for Southampton as well. Southampton have got tools and weapons of their own, but but I just think if they both are playing at full tilt, giving the best version of themselves, Newcastle will dominate. Newcastle could overpower them, will overpower them. And I think we've got the firepower up front to hurt them. And even if it's tight in a 60, 65, 70th minute, even if Newcastle are behind, or it's a draw, or it's a 0-0 at that point in time, you've got Gordon to come on, you've got Wilson to come on. It could be, it's going to be relentless. Willock to come on, it could be relentless. So my final prediction for this game is 3-0 Newcastle. And I've actually got Longstaff, Isak. I haven't got my third goal scorer, but it's someone from midfield. Longstaff, Isak, and Joe Linton as my goal scorers. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think these are the tactics that Eddie Howe will approach, Russell Martin will approach? What's your thoughts on the game? What do you think will be the final predictions? Let me know. And as always, guys, I look forward to seeing you after the game and giving our kind of post-match analysis as well. And yeah, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to engaging with you. The next show, which will be on Wednesday, will be a live show as well. So please do come on to that. I look forward to seeing you. And until next time, guys, take care and God bless, folks.